Well, hello, everybody. I'm Nigel Sarbatts, founder of the PR Cavalry and co-founder with Rod Cartwright of the Independent Impact Awards, which we ran for the first time this year. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Anna Pedroza, one of our winners in May this year, to ask her the same five questions that we're asking all the winners about their life as an independent. And we'll come on to those five questions in a minute, Anna. But if you could just start by saying, how did you come to be an independent? What prompted you to go independent? And just a quick update on, or a quick description of what kind of work you do at the moment.
Yeah, well, thanks very much, Nigel, for inviting me to come along today. It's really good to have this conversation. And my background is actually not just in PR. I've done lots of things in my career, and I think it's great for PRs to know that people don't necessarily start in PR and sort of cradle to grave in the sector. So my background has actually been, I actually started a fine art degree of all things, but the reason I became freelance was forced on me. I was made redundant in 2008 from a job that I loved.
Mm.
And it was very hard at that time with the economic situation to find a new role. And so I became independent due to that. And it wasn't long before I realized that it really fitted me and really enabled me to really thrive and flourish.
Mm.
One of the sort of lasting concerns I have of that is that being quite a risk averse person, I'm not certain I would have discovered that if I hadn't been made redundant. And so I think one of the interesting things about things like the Independent Impact 50 is it helps to give us a vehicle for promoting why becoming independent and being independent is a good idea, and maybe speaks to other kind of risk-averse Anna Pedrozas out there who may otherwise not want to make the jump.
Okay.
And
What do you do?
yeah, well, I've been doing this for 12 years and I work in education. So the sector that I swim in is education, and I swim really in a tiny pond of that, really schools, early years and further education. I don't do nearly as much work in the university sector. And that work can be tactical, and it can be kind of media relations related. But it's also strategy and providing counsel to clients as well,
Okay.
around communications in general. So
Okay.
that's me.
All right. So I'm going to ask you the first of the five questions that we're asking everybody. So what did it mean to you to be included in the inaugural Independent Impact 50 Awards, and why?
Um, well, I think it was for me the external recognition from such an impressive panel of judges that was a real boost to my confidence and a little stroke to the ego.
Yeah.
It was great. And I think one of the reasons that was important to me was because, as I said previously, I've not come through PR in a traditional context. So that sort of shot of sort of to that sort of boost to my sort of professional confidence was particularly important to me. And actually, when I spoke to people in May at that lovely celebration event that we had, lots of other people said similar things. So I'm afraid, Nigel, I've probably not given you a very original idea. But I do think that as independent practitioners, we lack the opportunity to hear from peers sometimes about the great work we're doing. And so these awards, again, are really valuable for independent practitioners because of that. We don't have that team that we might have if we were working in a comms team, client side, or in an agency.
Okay.
Um, and I think finally, it's also made me feel I belong more in the sector. I have at times felt very much on the sort of periphery of the profession. And the interesting thing with the Independent Impact 50 is that I know that you and Rod are both trying to develop a community, are trying to look at how we as winners can continue our conversations with each other.
Yeah.
And that's only in its infancy at the moment, but I feel it's the beginnings of a whole new club that I'm looking forward to being part of.
Okay. And question two, what behaviors by clients have most surprised you since going independent, be they positive or less so?
Well, I found this a really hard question to answer, and it was really fascinating to be asked it because actually there's lots of things about clients that don't surprise me at all. They're just the things that clients did when I worked in agencies, and I as a client did myself, everything from sort of giving people briefs just before you're jumping on holiday
Yeah,
to not necessarily really understanding the difference between tactical PR and a communication strategy, things of that sort. But one of the things that has really surprised me as an independent practitioner is the fact that my clients do ask me to pitch alongside agencies. So although Pedroza Comms, which is the company I trade under, is me, I am the sole employee, and then there's two or three expert associates that I work with when I don't have enough capacity or I need some additional specialist help. But basically, it's just me. And yet I often find myself pitching against an agency that maybe, has 60 or 100 members of staff.
mm,
And I think that's really interesting. I think that says something about the value that clients are increasingly seeing in independent practitioners and the sort of expertise. Some of the stats that came to the fore in the analysis that you did of the first 50 winners demonstrates the seniority that we have. And I think that clients value that. And it's particularly nice when I win the work and you hear from them I think the other thing they sometimes say is, Anna, we feel that we know that you don't have lots of clients. We know we're going to be special, not one of many, one of maybe 5 or 6 clients, which is the normal number of people I might be working with.
okay, thank you. Question three is, you imagine you're having lunch with the CEOs of the CIPR and the PRCA. What's
Yeah.
the one thing that you want them to understand about practicing as an independent and about the role and importance of the independent sector overall?
Well, it's worth a great deal, isn't it? Over 450 million. So I'm not certain that our CEOs of those organizations are as sharply focused on that as they
Mm,
might be. And I feel that it's really important if I was communicating with them, that's the thing I'd be underlining. And I'd be suggesting that, if that is the value, that they should be scrutinizing this part of the sector in more detail. We aren't a homogenous group.
mm,
Some of us work within agencies for much of our careers. In
mm,
fact, I'd argue, those freelancers are sort of often keeping the lights on in agencies and providing this really nimble and flexible workforce
mm,
that enable those agencies to operate and to be as competitive as they can be. We also have, those that are associates of consultancies, individual freelancers, and people like myself as well. So it's not a homogenous workforce and it requires some scrutiny. Some of the other things that I think are really interesting, and I think they should really think about trying to draw the dots on, is one of the speakers at the celebration event that you hosted, I think talked about the fact of, oh my goodness, this is where all the senior women are. And there is a strange brain drain that is coming from agencies into the independent sector in terms of senior women practitioners. We've seen the CIPR highlighting and looking at what happens to women in middle leadership in comms roles, and the data there is quite stark. But I think
mm.
there's another side to it in terms of how women are choosing actively to become independent. And I'd like them to look at that in more detail.
Okay, thank you. Question four is, you meet yourself as you weigh up whether you should go it alone. What do you say to Anna of that day?
Um, well, quite a few things, but I'll try and keep it simple. I think really go for it if you want to understand your value. When
Mm,
I think back to where I was 12 or 13 years ago, whenever I started in this role, one of the things I wasn't was secure in the professional value that I contributed to the organisation I worked for. And that may have been where I was in my career and the organisation. But I think it was also that when we work in larger, more complex organisations, it's harder sometimes to track exactly what we've done.
mm,
And one of the things I really love, whether I'm winning a piece of work, delivering it, or overviewing, reviewing the impact of it, is just the fact that I know it's me. I know it's me and the small team that I might have who have actually delivered that. And
Mhm.
it means that I feel really proud and motivated of the work I do. So I think that that's something I would always tell previous Anna Pedroza or anyone else who was thinking about following this pathway. I think the advice I'd give that I got wrong was do make sure you do the sums and ensure that you value yourself correctly. I made some terrible mistakes at the beginning in
Mhm.
terms of not charging, having a day rate at the right level and got in a complete pickle. I gave some money to an absolutely fantastic business coach who really helped me unpick that and helped me to look at how I could communicate with my existing clients about needing to increase my rates. It's still paying off to this day, Nigel, I can tell
Yeah.
you. And so I think that that's something, the advice I'd also give to someone. And finally, I'd say relish learning about business. It's
Mm.
really interesting understanding how even a tiny business like mine worked, the difference between turnover and operating profit, understanding IT, cybersecurity,
Mm.
what a sales funnel is and why it might be important. I've found those things to be really interesting, and it has also meant that in my trustee work, I've been able to apply that knowledge in some of the voluntary support that I also provide.
Okay, thank you. And finally, what words would you use to sum up how you feel about your business in the coming 12 months?
Um, I think I'm really excited about AI and how it's changing and shaping what I might be doing in the next 12 months or 24, in the future.
Yeah.
Partly, obviously, there's a whole range of tools that I can access for my business, which is valuable, but it's actually more to do with what it means for earned media, what it means about how we view that I think is changing quite dramatically.
Mm.
For the past 10 years, we've been in a model where SEO and backlinks has been really fundamental to why clients have increasingly wanted earned media. And that has
Yeah.
really devalued what media coverage is about. It's made it as good as the link it's secured. And that's obviously fantastic in a way, but it's only one tiny bit of why media relations is important.
Yeah.
The thing that's interesting about large language models like ChatGPT, Gemini, or whatever ones are coming over the horizon is that when we actually see our articles quoted at us about, that we've placed on behalf of clients, we're getting a much more sort of full sense of why that coverage is of value. So I think that's really exciting, and I think it's going to avoid PR becoming dangerously commoditized. I do have concerns, though, about managing to remain relevant. I don't know. Sometimes I have this slight moment of wishing that the bus would slow down or I could jump off for a moment and take a big breath. The frenetic pace is frenetic. It
Mm.
is really fast. And I need to remember to spend more time learning and understanding the relevance of the ever larger number of new channels. But finally, I think one of the other thing that I continue to reflect on and will continue to be the case for the forthcoming year is this huge issue we have around trust
Mm.
and whether we're looking at MPs, news, or any other sort of, or journalists for that matter. The degradation in trust is really concerning. And what that means for me and the work I do for my clients and how I can still ensure that I can provide them with something that's helpful. So I think that there's going to be in the B2B world, which is where I swim,
Mm.
I think increased focus on trusted influencers, the professional bodies, the unions, the channels of those sort that can be really valuable because we know our audiences already trust them. They're already paid up members. So I think that
Yeah.
that's the third thing that's going to be really important in my business is finding those trusted organizations in a world where trust seems to be something that is continually eroded.
Anna, that's been really interesting. Thank you for those answers. Been a great pleasure talking to you, and congratulations once again on being one of the inaugural 50. I hope that you will consider entering again next year. Nothing to stop you. And I hope also you will encourage some of your peers and network to do likewise and be there at that wonderful event in, well, whenever it is in 2026. But in the meantime, thank you very much indeed and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks very much, Nigel.
Okay.